I'm delighted today to be here with Chris Kissack on a gloriously sunny day in the Isle of Man. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, David. And it's glorious, and I'm going to be squinting a little bit, and I'm going to regret not putting some suntan on. But yeah, it is a very tropical island today.
Brilliant to see you here.
Thank you.
You've been part of the PCD community and network over a good number of years, but those who've not had the chance to meet you before, you've got a very distinct sort of focus and expertise, a new consultancy business that you just launched.
Yep.
Perhaps you tell us a little bit about your background.
So background is in the traditional core CSP corporate side of things. Grew up very much ingrained and involved in that space early on in my career, but behind the scenes, very passionate about emerging technologies and emerging tech, but very much focused on esports, which is the electronic video games played competitively. And over the last sort of 6 or 7 years, very fortunate to be around this growing industry that is now valued in the billions of dollars, and identifying needs for those corporate services and that corporate knowledge that I can bring to the table, and companies that I work in and advise with can do. So yeah, so the recently decided to go it solo.
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
I think I've got enough grey hairs in my beard now to say, look, if I'm not going to do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I'm stepping out on my own and consulting on both sides of the camp, really. So consulting those in the esports industry and helping them approach the corporate requirements that they need. So everything from forming bank accounts, forming companies, managing their visas, and then introducing them very much so to people within the PCD network is a perfect example. But also on the other side, consulting those in the corporate space, saying, look, you've seen this growing industry. I mean, the industry from an esports point of view, as we were talking before, the events sell out quicker than the Super Bowl. It has more viewership. The prize money dwarfs anything from traditional sports. How do you get involved in that space? You know, how can you approach it authentically? So I think I've got enough knowledge and enough experience and enough history now to bring that to the table as a consultant. And so far it's going well.
I mean, do you think that the traditional private wealth sector has a good understanding of sectors like esports? I mean, or is that the opportunity that you're looking at?
In answer to your question, I hope not, because otherwise I'll have made the wrong decision. So I hope that they haven't got enough knowledge and understanding, and where people like myself can come in and be comfortable in a boardroom, or be comfortable speaking to high net worths, to private investors, private wealth managers, and explaining the opportunities and explaining this new industry that they may have only been exposed to because they have a son or daughter that may be watching these events or playing these video games. So I think, no, at the moment, there isn't that level of understanding and expertise in this, in you know, the PCD sort of world. And that's where I can kind of come in and help with that. And I have done so far under working with some very good firms, but now it's a chance to kind of go on my own, really.
And you've been a big part of building the ecosystem here around esports, but tell us a little bit more about the Isle of Man infrastructure around supporting esports and growing that industry and base.
So yeah, I was head of esports for the Isle of Man government's digital department for 1.5 years, and I helped create the framework that now they've gone to kind of grow and really raise the island's profile as a place to come and do business in that space. And ultimately, it wasn't really any different than what the island's done in making a name for itself in other sectors and other industries. So it's done very well in the betting and the gambling side of things. It's done very well in yachting. It's done very well in private wealth. And you know, my involvement was really spending time with different government departments, spending time with different firms in the private sector, and doing what I'm doing now and educating them on the pain points of the esports industry, answering their questions, creating an environment which they felt safe to be able to put their hand up and say, well, actually, you know, what is the difference between League of Legends and Counter-Strike? Or what does GG mean? And why is it so important? And on the island, you know, we've got a lot to offer this emerging space, because we are seen as a beacon for tech startups and tech businesses. We've got fantastic infrastructure here. We've got fantastic individuals that are very skilled and knowledgeable in so many different areas, and it can attract that kind of startup mentality. So yeah, we've done really well so far in putting ourselves on the map as a We might not be hosting, big tournaments with 50, 60,000 people, but what we can do is be seen as the area for the back office side of things. If you need the support from the banking and the digital banking, you need support from a visa side of things, the Isle of Man is a great place for that.
And the government's very open to conversations, isn't it, in making sure that companies feel welcomed and have all the support they need to make that kind of step.
Absolutely, and that's no different than the other industries that, whether or not it's blockchain or the cryptocurrency side of things, it is that same mentality regardless of the sector. And in 10 years' time, a new sector may come along, and the island will continue to have that model of, look, you can come and speak to us authentically, you can come and have that conversation. And what's fantastic about the island, and it is a huge selling point, is that you can have so many meetings and so many conversations in such a small environment, and being able to network without having to jump on a train or a tube and travel over across the other side of London to be able to have a meeting with your bank manager or your advisor or somebody with government. You can all do that in the same location, very easy, in walking distance, and hopefully on a day like this as well.
Are there things you're seeing other jurisdictions doing that you think, that's a smart bit of incentivization, or that they've utilised what they've got and brought it to bear in this sector very efficiently,
I would say so, not to name drop too many other jurisdictions, but thankfully now I'm going solo and going on my own. I'm not necessarily solely tied to the Isle of Man side of things, and there are other jurisdictions that have been doing fantastic, and whether or not that's a marketing point of view or utilising what they've got from their infrastructure, from a stadium point of view, from traditional sports, and the jurisdictions and locations that have done the best is the ones that are not trying to overcomplicate things and saying, look, yes, esports may have its own terminology, it may have its own unique aspects too, but ultimately, if we treat it the same way as traditional sports, as an example, there's a lot of history within these traditional areas that you can just apply to esports, and that's been the same on the island. We've taken what we've done very well in e-gaming and betting or shipping and said, right, well, we've got a tried and tested and trusted model in those sectors. How can we translate that into esports? So in answer to your question, there is a lot of what other jurisdictions have been doing, but the Isle of Man again has a number of unique areas which it is definitely leaning into.
Yeah, and I guess like the fact that you've got the mainland UK there so accessible from here, educating the corporate base there on what the opportunity is around this sector, there's a huge opportunity linked to that.
There is, and I've spent time in London, in Manchester, across the Northwest. Thankfully, I'm in a position where it is very unique that I've got the knowledge from a corporate space, and I can have conversations with those in the traditional financial and corporate worlds, but also have the conversations from an esports point of view, and it is sought after, which is great. So, but I hope to kind of encourage other firms and other individuals to be able to tap into this market and help it grow, because it's an industry I'm very passionate about. I love it very much, and it does need more service providers, it needs more skilled individuals, and it needs firms to be able to identify where they can bring value and whether or not that's a law firm or it's an investment firm or it's a bank. The industry is only going to grow the right way if you've got these other firms and these individuals putting value in. And which is what's great about your PCD club is that you're able to get involved in that and be able to identify so many different people within that one safe environment and be able to educate them and be able to access them, and that's just why I'm so excited to be able to not only have this conversation but be able to attend your event tomorrow and have those conversations with these people that are scratching their heads, that might not necessarily have attended a traditional esports event, but now in this safe space and safe environments, and say, well, you need to speak to Chris on this if you do have an interest in esports. So I'm excited to have some really interesting conversations tomorrow.
Great. And then on a different tack, we're hosting a private boardroom session covering crypto, digital assets, those involved here in the ecosystem, for a broad discussion with those arriving for our dinner who are also equally interested in how this space evolves. So,
very much so.
I mean, what's the flavour of the people based on the island who are into this sort of crypto and digital asset space? Is it a thriving sort of ecosystem of people who are interested in the technology?
Yeah, we've got those digital nomads who've created something fantastic in the space and been able to build something here on the island and tap into the ecosystem here. Tomorrow's event is going to be great. It is very as when we talked about it, it's going to be roundtable session, closed door, invite only, and creating that safe space for people to get together and share opinions, share knowledge, ask questions, debate. And there's always something going on in this tech market, especially in the crypto space currently. And the people that I've spoken to locally who are coming along are very excited to be able to come along to that event and have those conversations and discussions in a very safe, authentic environment. And you've created the framework for that. It's going to be great tomorrow.
Great.
It really is.
And finally, Chris, we put a post up earlier on the feed about the local produce that's produced here in the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man honey, the gin, the craft ales, the cheese, the kippers, everything.
Yeah.
People that feed is already buzzing. What is your top recommendation for local produce? What would you think people should check out, take a look at? Putting you on the spot here.
You are indeed. So I would say a whole smorgasbord of things, which is great, but I would lean towards the ale. You don't have a beard like this and not like craft ale. So I would say tapping in and making sure they take time to check out the local breweries and the local ale. I'm very biased in when I say that you're not going to get a better pint from a local brewery as you would over here. And the Queenies as well. So you can't beat the Manx Scallops and the Manx Queenies. They're not going to be short of choice. They're spoiled of choice.
Fantastic. Well, look, great to chat to you today, Chris. And look forward to sharing this video.
Cheers, David.
The latest technical content delivered through global conversations with professionals for professionals.